So let's jump into Revit. Under projects, what I'd like to do is create a brand new structural model. So let's go to structural template. This opens up the default structural template. Now I want to bring in an architectural underlay. So we can do that one of two ways. If you go to the Insert tab and click on Link Revit, that's one way of doing it. Or in the project browser, you can scroll down to the very bottom. And if you right click where it says Revit Links, you can go to New Link. So whichever way you like to do it, go ahead and click on New Link. Now I'm going to scroll to where I'm keeping my architectural model. Now, the most important part is the positioning. If I click the drop down here, you'll see we have several different methods. Auto origin to origin is always what you're going to want to use. So select auto origin to origin. Let's click open. Now our model's in, but it looks kind of funny. In the properties, let's scroll down a little bit and see what the deal is. For discipline, instead of structural, let's set the discipline to coordination and click apply. This keeps you from inadvertently moving it. Gonna skip a couple times. Now I'd like to take a look at these icons down on the bottom here. If you click on select links, you get a little red X next to it. Now you cannot select that link at all. It's a safe way of working, but it will confuse people. So you can turn off select links. Next one down is select underlay elements. Same kind of idea. The next one would be select pinned elements. Same thing. If you turn that off, you can't select your pinned element either. I'm going to turn that one back on. And this one here is select elements by face. This is handy to turn on and off. We'll be turning this on and off throughout the course. Now what I'd like to do is select your underlay again. Now I'm going to click on Edit Type right here. Let's turn on Room Boundary. That way, if we want to put a room in here, we can see what it is. Let's click Apply. Let's click OK. Let's hit Escape a few times. Now what I'd like to do is go to the Manage tab. I'd like to go to Additional Settings. And I want to go down to Halftone Underlay. Generally, I like to set my rate to 1. And for my halftone, I like to bump it up to 80%. Now, this can change based on your company's plotters. Our plotters at my company plot pretty light, so I like to bump it up to 80 and override the weight of 1. The default is just a little too light for me. I'm gonna hit OK. Now, another thing I'd like to do is check out our visibility graphics. What the visibility graphics are, that's how you control how your view looks. It's an override only for the view. So for example, we're in structural plan level 2. You can halftone and you can underlay this. So let's go ahead and click on halftone. Let's click apply. Let's click OK. Notice now that it will halftone it, and it will halftone it based on the settings that we just tweaked. Now, just because we brought this model into level 2, it's in our model, so it doesn't matter what level you're on when you bring it in. Let's go to a 3D view. So go ahead and click on this house right here. This is the default 3D view. Go ahead and click that. Now we're in a structural view, so for discipline, instead of structural, we can switch this to coordination. Click apply. Now you can see it. On the bottom here, what I'd like to do is set our detail level to fine. Now we can set our visual style. Let's make it realistic. Now we see it in a realistic view, only without any windows or any doors or openings. What I'd like to do is click on the Save button. Let's save this somewhere. I'm going to name it Structure. You can name yours whatever you'd like. Let's go to the options right here. Go ahead and click on Options. Let's make it so there's only one backup. Let's click OK. Now let's click Save. Perfect. With the architectural model linked in, we can get started. So essentially what we can do, if I select this, we can turn on other elevations as well. But the trick is we need to move this in one shot. So we need to pick a window around it. Revit is very similar to AutoCAD in the selection method, whereas if I pick a point from the left to the right, I'll get a box. So everything that's completely inside of that box will be selected. Now, if I go from right to left, it's a crossing window. So all I need to do is touch an item and that item will become selected. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a box around these two items, just like that. I'm going to select them. Now, when I hover over it, I get my move symbol. So I'm going to pick this and I'm just going to move it over to here. Now I'm going to hit escape a couple times. Now what I'd like to do is come down to the south elevation and click on this. And if we zoom in here, what we're going to see are architectural levels and our own levels. So what I want to do though is I want to select our level 2. Notice we have level 1 and level 2. Notice in our project browser we have level 1 and level 2. Level 1 analytical and level 2 analytical, we can actually delete those. We'll do that later. I'm going to select level 2. Notice that all this stuff lights up. We get a 3D icon, meaning that if we move it here, it's going to move it in every single view we have. We can uncheck it so we don't see it at all. But what I want to do is notice this little grip right here. If we hover over it, we'll see it says modify the level by dragging its model end. If you go ahead and pick that little grip and drag over to the right, notice that they're both locked in place and we can move them. Now we have level 1 and level 2. What I'd like to do first is I want to select level 2. Now I want to click the move icon. And I want to zoom in right to here. Now I want to pick this point right here. Now I want to move it down to this point right here. This will be our top of steel elevation. Now we have level 2, 9'5". Now I want to create a new level. To do that, we can go to the Architecture tab. Notice that way down here on the Datum panel, we'll see we can choose grids or level. If you go to the Structure tab, you get the same exact thing. So what I want to do is click on the Level button here. Now, what Revit lets you do is it actually will integrate your offset item with the modeling element. So on the Draw panel, go ahead and click on your Pick Lines button. Now it's typed in 6 inches for the offset. Now I'm going to offset level 3 down 6 inches. I'm going to hit escape a couple times. I'm going to select our new level 3. I'm going to grab this little grip and I'm going to drag it out. Now what I'd like to do is just click on this little button right here that says Show Bubble. And here's our level 3. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Now I want to right click on level 3 and I want to create similar. On my Draw panel, I'm going to click on my Pick Lines button. And my offset is going to be 6 inches. I'm going to offset level 4 down, go to level 5. Now for my roof, it's hard to see, but what I want to do is have a 0 offset, because notice the roof is in addition to this, so this is our top of steel. So I'm going to click right here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this grip again. I'm going to pick it. I'm going to drag them out. Notice how we can drag it out until it locks itself to the rest of the levels. Now we can just turn on these levels. If we select it, turn them on, and we can turn them on. Now notice that on the other side we have them here. We can go ahead and turn these off on this side. It's very important at this point though, if we look at the project browser, make sure you only have 6 levels. If you have a ton of levels, that means you probably accidentally overlapped some levels. It's a good idea to undo at this point to make sure you have level 1 through 6 and then level 1 through 6. Now what I'd like to do is select level 6. Now click it again, and I want to rename it all caps to roof. And we're going to hit enter. Now we get a dialog asking us if we want to rename corresponding views, which means you want to rename this level 6 in the project browser. You generally always want to say yes. It gets really confusing if your view doesn't match your level. Now I want to right click on the roof and create similar. On my drop panel, I'm going to use my pick lines button. My offset is going to be 10 feet. And I'm going to pick my roof level and I want to go up. Notice that when I hover over the top of it, it will give us a line that goes upward. So go ahead and pick on this level. Let's turn it on. Let's hit escape a couple times. Let's select level 7 and call it penthouse. Hit enter. Yes, we want to rename corresponding views. Now what I'd like to do is come down here. Notice that we have a top of footing level in the architectural model. We need to mimic that as well. So I'm going to right click on level 1. I'm going to create similar. On my drop panel, I'm going to click on my pick lines button. I'm just going to pick my top of footing level. I'm going to drag that out. I'm going to turn it on. And I'm going to rename it, all caps, to T period O period footing. Would you like to rename corresponding views? Yes, we do. So click yes. Now, one other thing we can do, for example, if we don't want this condition to show up, if I select my level, notice that I have a little icon right here. If you hover over it, it says add elbow. Go ahead and click that. Now notice that we can adjust the grips. So if we need to, we can move our level out of the way. Escape a couple times. Save your model. And there you have it. Now all you have to do is hover over the architectural underlay and it will highlight it. Once you see it highlight, go ahead and pick it. Now I'm going to zoom back in down here. Now I want to go to monitor. What we're going to do is we're going to hover over these two levels. Revit knows which one it wants to select first. So I'm going to click on this top of footing. Then I'm going to click on top of footing again. Now if I zoom out a little bit and come down here, we'll see that we have this little heartbeat icon. That indicates that it's being monitored. Let's do the same for level 1. We're going to pick it twice, basically. We're picking one, then the next. Let's go up to our roof level and do the same here. Now what I want to do is I want to go to level 5. So select our level 5 first, then the architect's level 5. Select level 4 to level 4, level 3 to level 3, level 2 to level 2, and we're all set because level 1's already monitored. Now go ahead and click on Finish. Now what we can do is we can open up the architectural model. Go ahead and save this model and then close out of it. Now let's go to Open. Let's go to Elevations, Building Elevation. Let's go to South. I want to scroll down to our top of footing and select it. Instead of minus 10 feet, I want to go minus 6 feet. Then I want to hit Enter. Let's click the Save button. I'm going to close out of the architectural model. I'm going to open up my structural model. And I'm going to get a warning. Instance of link needs coordination review. Let's click the Expand button. And when we drill into the warning, it tells us basically what the warning is, but we'll look at it in further detail. Let's click OK. Now I'm going to go ahead and select my architectural underlay. And notice now we have a coordination review button right here. Go ahead and click that. Levels maintained position, level moved by 4 feet. Let's drill into that. Select architectural level. Notice that it turns it blue here. Select the next level. Notice that it turns it blue here in the model. So it's showing us exactly what has changed. So there's an action that we can take on it. So click the Postpone drop-down. We can reject it, accept the difference, or move the level. I want to move the level, top of footing. So go ahead and select Move Level, top of footing. Click Apply. Click OK. Hit Escape a couple times. And it's all set. Now when we zoom in, we'll see that we're coordinated still. So it's good to be able to keep an eye on our architect friend. So to get started, let's jump into Revit. Now I'm going to open up my structure in O3 that if we click on the 3D view right here, it's one big model. It's simply just views of this model. So if I delete this wall or anything in the model, it'll delete out of every view. But what's cool about the views is they contain their own visibility graphic settings. So for example, let's go back down to level 1 structural plan. On the very bottom is what's called the view control toolbar. We'll see we can set the scale to anything we want. And if we come to the next button right here, we can set our detail level. Let's go ahead and click on detail level. And let's set our detail level to 5. Set it back to coarse. You'll see that we can only see the outlines of those walls. This really comes into play with structure because of the fact that if we have our structural view set for coarse, it looks like an actual structural view. If we had it set for fine, and we have, say, for example, structural steel in there, we can see the flanges and everything. It's a pretty neat thing. The next one is visual style. We can set it to hidden line, or we can set it to shaded or realistic. Now what this does, let's set it back to wireframe. This allows us to see the view in different visual styles. Again, when we make an edit down here, this is simply for the view that we're in of the model. Now, if we zoom out, what I'd like to do is I'd like to check out our visibility graphics. So Revit really breaks it down nicely. Now, this is your replacement for your layers. The thing is, we don't have a layer called air terminal layer, and it's not a blue color. If we don't want to see air terminals, we turn them off. So we can go through and we can uncheck all the stuff that we really never want to see. Also, if we go all the way down to Revit links, again, notice that we can control the visibility of our underlay independent of the visibility of our model. You simply click on by host view under display settings, and if you click on custom, now if we go to model categories, in our model categories, and instead of by host view, if we go custom, now check it out, we can turn our air terminals back on. So if we have air terminals in our architectural underlay, we'll be able to see them now. Click apply, click OK, click OK. One other thing I'd like to do is let's go to the Manage tab. If we scroll down to here, this is called Object Styles. Go ahead and click on Object Styles. For our filter list, let's just filter it on structural and architectural elements. So I'm going to uncheck all of the MEP stuff, and I'm going to click off of it. Now, this controls the object styles globally. This is not view specific. This is what replaces your CTB file in AutoCAD. So, for example, if we have casework, and we're looking at it in planar elevation, which is called the projection, it's a line weight of 1. But if we're cutting a section through it, it's a line weight of 3. Now, if we drill into it, we'll see we have hidden lines, and we can have different projections and cuts. Let's scroll down to something more relevant. Let's go down to structural columns. Now, structural columns, it's a line weight of 1 in planar elevation, and if we cut a section through it, it's a thicker line weight of 4. And if we drill in, we could really say, okay, my hidden lines are a projection of 1, a cut of 1, but yet the line pattern is a dash. These are set up for the AIA CAD standards and the national CAD standards. So what makes 1 and 4 1 and 4? Let's take a look at that. If we hit cancel here, and if we go back to the Manage tab, and we click on additional settings drop down, let's go down to line weights. Now this part looks a little more familiar. We have our 0.0030 for a line weight of 1, and we have it up to 16. As you will see too, that Revit will bump down the line weights as our scale gets smaller. So for some of the heavier line weights, if we have a scale of 1/32 equals an inch, Revit will actually bump down the line weight considerably so we can see those objects. It's pretty awesome. We also can do perspective line weights as well as annotation line weights. So if you go back to model line weights, click apply, click OK. Also, what we can do is we can duplicate a level. So for example, if level 1, I want to turn off all of my architectural items and only have structural items, I'm going to right click on level 1. Now I'm going to duplicate view. Now the difference is if we had dimensions and text And if I duplicated with detailing, it would copy all over. Since we don't have any of that stuff now, let's just click on duplicate. Now I'm going to right click on level 1 and I'm going to rename it. I'm going to call it level 1 model. I'm going to click OK. Now my level 1 model, if I type VG for my filter list, I'm going to turn everything back on again. Now I'm going to click all underneath. Now I'm going to turn everything on. Click apply, click OK. So, for example, what I can do is I can work in my level 1 model and have my level 1 be the actual level that's on a sheet. So I can have all my items turned on here and only a few specific things turned off here. Armed with this knowledge, we can start to figure out how to get our Revit looking the way we want it. With a traditional structural plan, you're not going to get very far without a grid system. This video's objective is to use our architectural underlay to set up a grid system. I'm going to get started by jumping into Revit. Instead of structural, I'm going to temporarily turn this back to coordination. I'm going to click apply. For my detail level, I'm going to set it to fine. Now I'm going to set up my grids. So I'm going to go to my structure tab. I'm going to click on the grid button right here. Now on my draw panel, I'm going to click on my pick lines button. My offset's going to be 0. Now I'm going to scroll in really close to this wall. I'm going to hover over the center line of it, and I'm going to go ahead and pick it right there. If I zoom out, I'm going to grab grid line 1 and grab that grip and move it up. Notice that grids are very similar to levels, where we can actually split it out, put it back. We can actually turn our grid bubble on or off. I like this one, so I'm going to keep it at 1. Now what I want to do is copy these down. So I'm going to go ahead and select grid line 1. First thing I'm going to do is go down to the bottom and notice that I have another little bubble down here. I'm going to pick this bubble. I'm going to drag it down. I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to select grid line 1. Now I'm going to click on my copy button. Now what's going to happen is I'm going to get this toolbar right here. This is what's called the options toolbar. So I'm going to click on constrain. I'm going to click on multiple. Basically, constrain is your ortho command for all you AutoCAD users. I'm going to select grid line 1 right up about here somewhere. I'm going to go ahead and pick it. Well, I'm going to start going to my right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to the center line of this wall, to this wall, to this wall. I'm going to scroll on. I'm going to go to the center line of this wall. At the very end, I'm going to scroll in, and I'm going to go to the center line of this wall. Now I'm going to hit escape a couple times. We got my grid lines established. I'm going to select grid line 6. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to create similar. On my draw panel, I'm going to make sure that I have my line command picked. I'm going to scroll in here, and I'm going to come right to the end point of this wall. You see where the curved wall stops? So I have 2 endpoints. I'm going to pick this endpoint. I'm going to scroll out. I'm going to come straight up, and I'm going to pick a point right here. And I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to select grid line 7. I'm going to pick this bubble. I'm going to drag it all the way down. Now I'm going to go ahead and click on the show bubble button. I've got 1 through 7. Okay, now what I'm going to do is my horizontals. So I'm going to right click on grid line 1. I'm going to create similar. On my draw panel, I'm going to click on my pick lines button. I'm going to scroll in here and I'm going to pick the center line of this horizontal wall. Once it's picked, you see you have a little bubble. So I'm going to pick the bubble and I'm going to drag it out to about here. I'm going to turn on my show bubble button. I'm going to drag it out maybe a little bit more. And since it's blue, I can click on it one more time and edit it, and it's going to be a capital A. I'm going to hit escape a couple times. I'm going to come down to this end. I'm going to select grid line A. I'm going to pick the bubble. And I'm going to drag it out to about here. Escape. Now I'm going to do some multiple copies on this one. So I'm going to select grid line A. I'm going to click on the copy button. Constraint and multiple are both turned on. I'm going to zoom into here, and I'm going to pick a point like right about here. Right about here. And pick that point. I'm going to come down to the center line of this wall. To the center line of my corridor wall. To the center line of this wall. I'm going to pick the center line of this wall, but we're going to have to do something special with this. I'm going to pick here. And then one more, I'm going to come down to the very bottom and pick here. A, B, C, D, E, F. Now what I'd like to do is come over here. I want this to be in alignment with that wall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my align command. So I'm going to go to my modify tab. Then I'm going to click on the align button. Now, the first item I want to pick is going to be the item I want to align to. So I'm going to pick this wall right here. I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to pick on my horizontal grid reference. Now it's aligned. And I hit escape a couple times. And that's right where I want it. Let's add a couple more around the curved area here. So I'm going to right click on column line B. And I'm going to create similar. Now on my drop panel, I'm going to use my pick lines button again. But this time I'm going to give it an offset of 6 inches. Make sure it's not 6 feet. I'm going to scroll in here and I'm going to offset it inside of the building 6 inches. So I'm going to pick this point. Hit escape a couple times. Now I'm going to select this grid. I'm going to pick this bubble and I can drag it in. Notice I can turn on the bubble. I can drag this one in. I can either give that a break, I can move it up, or do whatever I want with it. I'm going to hit escape. 2 more. I'm going to right click on column line B. I'm going to create similar. I'm going to keep my line button picked. But the problem is I want to get the center line of this grid. And when I snap in here, I'm not sure I can trust that. Once you see that, pick it. Now notice I can snap to 45 degrees. So I'm going to put a point right about here. Now I'm going to hit escape a couple times. Now I'm going to select column line H. And I'm going to click on this button right here. This is mirror pick axis. I'm going to click on this center line right here. Now I'm going to hit escape a couple times. Now I want to rename this. So column line H, I'm going to select it again. It's going to be capital B.1. Hit enter. And this one here is going to be capital D.9. Hit enter. And there we have it. We've got our grid all set. We've got a couple concrete. We've got a couple W shapes. If we want to load another type of column, we can go ahead and do that. So let's go over to our mode panel. Let's click on load family. Now be careful, don't go to columns because these are architectural columns. These don't help us at all. We're going to scroll down till we find structural columns. So let's double click on structural columns. Now let's go to steel. Now I'm going to grab an HSS house structural section. Now in my specified types, I'm going to expand this to make it a little easier because this search can be tedious. I want to find HSS 6x6x5/8. So once I find HSS 6x6x5/8, I'm going to go ahead and select that. Now I'm going to click OK. Now what I want to do is I want to make sure that instead of depth, we're sending it up to the height. So instead of depth, click height. And for the level of our height, I want to go all the way up to the roof level. Now I'm going to scroll into column line A1. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place it right on this grid right here. And I'm going to hit escape a couple times. Now that my column's in, I'm going to go ahead and select it. Now I'm going to look at the properties. Notice that it understands the location mark. So it knows that I put it on column grid A1. My base level is level 1. My top level is up to level roof. To create another one, we can right-click on the column that's there, and we can create similar. Again, I can go down to column line A2 and select that. We can keep going down the row until we basically get them all in here. Now, this could take a while on large buildings, so I'm going to show you another little trick. I want to go ahead and click on at grid intersection. So remember, if we lost our column command, make sure you start the column command again. You go at grid intersection. Now I'm going to zoom out. Now I'm going to pick a point by holding down my pick button. And I'm going to scroll around the entire model. And I'm going to pick all the grids just like that. Once I've done that, I'm going to click on the finish button. Well, I'm going to hit escape a couple of times. And I know that I might have a few too many. That's okay. So I'm going to scroll into column line A7. And I'm going to delete that because it's outside of our building. I'm going to go down to F7 and I'm going to delete that. There's a couple extras here as well. So I'm going to select this one and delete it. I'm going to select this one and I'm going to delete it. And I'm going to keep these columns as they are. Let's go to a 3D view. What I'd like to do in the 3D view is notice that we've got some columns poking up through our floor. That's fine. I want this to look structural. So under discipline, instead of coordination, I'm going to click the drop down and I'm going to go structural. I'm going to click apply. Now, I don't want to see the architectural model at all. So under visibility graphic overrides, I'm going to click on edit. Notice that I can show anything that I would typically show on a plan. I'm going to hit cancel. I want to scroll down till I find grid appearance. Now I'm going to click on edit. Now I can adjust my grid appearance right here. It looks okay for all of these items, but I want to go to text appearance. I like Arial, I like 330 seconds. What I want to do is I want to bump my width factor down to 0.8 in all of these. Now I want to go 0.8 for the bottom one. Now my title text, I want to bold that. I'm going to click OK. So notice that it's scrunched down a little bit and it's bold. If I come into my column offsets, we see that C3 and C4 are column line offsets. Pretty cool. And down to here, these are column line offsets as well. Of course, we can specify what our off-grid units are by clicking right here. And generally, I can let it go to use project settings. That'll route to your safe. Let's offset use project settings. Now I'm going to suppress 0 feet. And I'm going to click OK. Now, if we scroll down a little bit more, text, we can click on edit for text appearance. And all that does is send us back to the same schedule text appearance that we had before. So let's click OK here. Let's keep scrolling down. We can dictate what phases it's on. If we have hidden levels, if you click on edit, we can hide certain levels that are in here. For this case, I want to keep these all turned on, but we can hide certain levels. You'll find that you're going to be hiding a lot of levels when you get in a real project. I'm going to click OK here. For top level, we can choose top. Bottom level, we can choose bottom. I don't want to override these. For column locations, we can change all of these if we want. But I want to scroll down to the very bottom and I want to go to material types and I want to click edit. Now, when we get into foundations, we're going to actually use concrete columns, but these are going to be in a pier and a pilaster schedule. So I want to uncheck everything other than steel here. So let's uncheck everything other than steel. Let's click OK. Now, if we click on edit type, we can duplicate this if we want. We can rename it if we want. But what I want to do is I just want to keep it the same. And I want to click OK. That was very simple. The only problem here is it's hard to edit these column schedules to get them to look exactly like your AutoCAD column schedule looked like. Now that we have a good grasp on adding columns, let's take a look at adding slanted columns. By setting up a 2-point system, we can configure the slant of our column. We need to configure some alternate grids or reference planes that accurately do it though. So if you take a look at what we've got here, The objective is to create these columns that are slanted. We don't quite know how to do framing yet, but don't worry, we'll get to it. So what I'd like to do is jump into Revit, and under Projects, let's go to Structural Template, and just click it. Now what I'd like to do is, let's go to the Structure tab. Let's set up a grid. So let's come down to the Datum panel, and let's click the Grid button. I'm going to draw a grid right here. Then I'm going to hit Escape a few times. I'm going to select the grid. I'm going to click on this little Show Bubble button. Grid 1. Now I'm going to select Grid 1. I'm going to click Copy. I'm going to keep my constraint turned on. You can turn multiple on for now. We'll meet it in a minute. I'm going to select Grid Line 1. I'm going to copy to the left 4 feet. And I'm going to hit Escape a couple times. Instead of Grid 2, I'd like to select the number 2. Click it again and just type 1.1 and hit Enter. Then hit Escape. Now I'm going to select column line 1. And I'm going to copy it to the right 4 feet. So I'm going to click my Copy button. I'm going to select column line 1 somewhere along the line here. Pick a point. I'm going to go 4 feet to the right. Then I Escape a couple of times. Now I'm going to select 1.2. I'm going to click it again. I'm going to type in a 2. I'm going to hit Enter. Hit Escape. Select column line 2. Let's copy it down twice. So I'm going to click the Copy button. Select 2. I'm going to go 25 feet. And I guess another 25 feet. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, and an offset of 1.1. Let's right-click on one of these column lines and let's create similar. I'm going to draw a horizontal column in. With that drawn in, I'm going to go ahead and turn on the Show Bubble. To set column line 5, I'd like it to be column line A, uppercase. Now I'm going to select the column line A. I'm going to click Copy, Constraint, and Multiple. I'll copy this one down 25 feet. Then another 25 feet. We don't have to get crazy with it. And move these column lines up, just so they look nice. Perfect. Now, let's go to the Structure tab. Let's click the Column button. Down here for Placement, instead of Vertical Column, let's click the Slanted Column. And what we'll see is we get some choices. The first click will be level 1. The second click will be level 2. We can give them offsets as well. So I'm going to zoom into column line A1. And this will be my base point. So my first click is going to be here. Notice once I engage the first point, I don't have a chance to do anything else. So my second point is going to be right here on column line A1.1. I'm going to hit Escape a couple of times. There we go. I'm going to select my column. I'm going to click the Copy button. Constraint and Multiple will both be selected. I'm going to pick a point here. Copy it to here. Copy it to here. Now I'm going to go to Column again. This time on my Placement panel, I want to just have a vertical column. So I'm going to click Vertical Column. I'm going to fill the rest in. Very good. Hit Escape a couple of times. Let's go to a 3D view. Notice now we have regular vertical columns as well as slanted columns. Remember, we didn't need to have a grid 1.1. We could have just used reference planes, but I like to use a grid instead. Suppose we have a situation like we see here, where we have a cantilevered beam. Now our column still wants to go from column 1 to top level column 2. But the problem is we want our cantilever to run uninterrupted and be supported by the column underneath. Very typical situation. But what we can see if we select this column, and if I look at level 1 to level 2, notice the top offset is some funky number because that's the width of our beam. We don't want to have to guess what that is, so we can actually use the attach function. Let's do that. To get started, let's jump into Revit. And I want to go to Open. I'm going to click Open. Now what we'll see is in 3D is all of our columns are going from level 1 to level 2. So in our project browser, let's bounce up to level 2. I'm going to zoom in here and do a little bit of framing. So on my Structure tab, I'm going to click my Beam button. And I'm going to draw a beam from column line 3A to 1.1A. Turn on Tag on Placement. I know we haven't done beams yet, but it's pretty easy. I'm going to select the midpoint of this column on column line 3A. I'm going to come all the way over to 1.1. I'm going to ignore the fact that this column is here. I'm going to do the same on grid line B and C. So I'm going to click on Beam. I'm going to go here, here, and hit Escape. I'm going to go from here to here. So I'm going to hit Escape. Now what I'd like to do is let's go to a 3D view by clicking a 3D house on the Quick Access toolbar. So click on 3D. To see it a little bit better, I want to set my visual style to hidden line. Now when I zoom into here, we'll see we have a problem. Now if I select this column, what I can do is on my modified column panel, I can click Attach Top Base. So I'm going to select Attach Top Base. Now we can give it an offset from attachment. So suppose we want to leave an inch gap. So I'm going to type in 1 inch. The attachment justification, if you click the drop down, minimum intersection, intersection column midline, or maximum. I'm going to go with minimum, which means it's going to put it to the bottom. Attachment style, cut column, cut target, do not cut. We want to cut the column. We want to attach the top. So now I'm just going to go ahead and select that item. It's going to cut it down. Notice that I want 1 inch up into it. If we select this column, we can always scroll down over here. Offset from attachment, let's type in minus, and that will fix it. You skip a few times. Let's try it again. Select this column here. Click Attach Top Base. Offset from attachment. This time we know what we're doing. Minus 1 inch. Select that beam. Cuts it back. Select this column. Attach top base. Our defaults are correct now. Attach column top. Select that column. Hit Escape. Now what's going to happen is if I select this beam and I give it an offset of like 2 feet, what will happen is our column is going to move up with it. This column won't because it's not joined, but that's okay. So that's how you attach a column to the bottom of a framing member.